Who the Wild Things Are with Ryan McGuire.
You gotta listen to your body.
Oh my God, maybe, I could get out there, I could do this.
Let's take a ride, find your wild side, real stories, see with your own eyes.
It's so beautiful.
I'm gonna have the best time out here.
I was in tears. I was like, that's the best, man.
Welcome back to Who the Wild Things Are. My name is Ryan McGuire, and I'm here to bring you conversations with the most wild folks on the planet. If you're enjoying the podcast, please leave us a rating and review on your podcast platform of choice. And if you enjoyed the episode, share it with a friend. Appreciate you guys. Let's get it going. All right, we're live. Welcome back to Who the Wild Things Are. Today I'm here with Paddy O'Connell, and the world famous Paddy O'Connell from
Oh my God, no.
the Outside Magazine podcast. So if you guys haven't checked that out, definitely check that out. He's the new host there. Paddy, how we doing?
Really good, Ryan. Thanks for having me on. It's like to be here.
Yeah, definitely. Before we dive into kind of all the things you've got going on now, I'd like to give people just a little bit of a background. Mainly just for context and figure out how it is that you got into this. I know just from listening to some other stuff you've done that you kind of grew up in the Midwest, as did I, and then kind of found your way.
That's why I like
west.
you already, Ryan.
Yes. Yeah. So talk me through that a little bit. One thing I'm curious about, being from the Midwest, was this always your plan to kind of move towards the mountains and pursue these dreams?
Oh God, no. I mean, not because the West isn't awesome. That's why I live here. But I did not have any plan ever, really. I grew up just outside Chicago. I went to school in Indianapolis. Very much Midwest guy, through and through, from birth through college. Team sports guy, and outdoor adventure was like, playing cops and robbers in the woods, in the forest reserve, bike riding, sledding, things like that. And, I felt a pull to the West. We did a big road trip a couple of big road trips when I was really young, and, loved the desert and the Four Corners area. Love the mountains. These were great, but it was like something that was like very far off, and seemed almost like otherworldly. My quote unquote plan, right, was to go to school in the Midwest, play lacrosse at school, and had no idea what I was going to do after graduation. I graduated with an English lit degree, moved back home to Chicago and lived with my parents like many folks do after college. And I started working at an elementary school, and to kind of dip my toes into what I thought would be my career path, which was teaching. And I did not like saying no to kids. That's what I felt like I was doing a lot. And I was like, I don't think I'm going to be a teacher. We're like teaching for the test only. We're not teaching for these kids who, need, we're not teaching for their needs, really. We're teaching for funding, and I didn't like that. And so in the spring, I went to Telluride, Colorado for a ski trip for the first time ever, when I was 23, to visit a college pal. And on that trip, a 3-day trip, I decided that I was going to move to Telluride and become a skier and a ski bum. And I did that. And so that was, I was flying by the seat of my pants. I still feel like I'm flying by the seat of my pants, man, honestly. But that's how I ended up out west. And now I've been out here ever since, with a quick stint in Minnesota when I was 29 for like a little over 2 years, but then moved back out west, started working in media. And that's what I've been doing for, over a decade now.
Yeah, so one thing I
quick
want to
and dirty, man. That's
Yeah. One thing I want to double click on there is the education thing. I know because my partner is a teacher.
Yeah.
And when I look at my education, traditional childhood education, probably similar to yours, right? They kind of sit you in a chair. You get 30 minutes to be outside.
Yeah.
If you're in the Midwest, half the year that's 30 minutes in below average weather. So
no doubt.
Being now so ingrained and like connected inside the outdoor industry, is there thoughts that run through your head about education reform for kids that like kind of involves the outdoors? Because it's something I think about a lot. I'm like, man,
Yeah.
I would have made a lot less trouble if they would have just put me in the mountains for 2 hours a day. Like,
Yeah. I think that's that stuff is like getting a lot, better. My wife and I were just talking about this. Like I was tested for learning disorders and learning disabilities like throughout my childhood, and they couldn't figure it out. They were just like, I don't know, I went to a small Catholic school, and they were like, did you pray about it? I was like, that's not helping me. I say a lot of prayers when I'm taking tests and I'm, completely lost. So, I mean, yes, education reform, of course. This is probably a totally we could really go down the rabbit hole here with what is currently happening in our country around education. And, we just had a baby girl about 3 months ago. And my wife and I, it's very top of mind about, the schools that we're going to be sending our child to and how the outdoors play into that. I think traditional classroom setting is needed. I think learning outside and being a tactile learner myself, I think that is very much needed. So yeah, I mean, how that would have looked like in my childhood, I don't know. Probably. I mean, little Catholic school, like our outdoor time was playing on the blacktop parking lot. We would play Upset the Fruit Basket, or, 500 or Nerf football, for 30 minutes and then, go try to learn algebra.
right.
After running around a parking lot in church shoes. I mean, my daughter's upbringing and education is going to look a lot different than mine, and I think that's a really good thing.
Congratulations, by the way, on the newborn.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's amazing, and also it's the most rewarding ass kicker of all time. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing to me to think about. I have aspirations to be a dad someday,
Nice.
But like being that adult athlete, right? Like we were just like, probably very similar in that way. We played sports as kids and then just decided that we were going to keep doing it into adulthood.
Yeah.
And when you have kids, you have to figure out how you fit that one more puzzle piece into the equation.
Oh yeah, it's super hard. Especially with like going back to work. Like right now, my deal is like I get like late night gym sessions, because that's the only time that I have for it. And then like outdoor time is full weekend warrior right now. I just don't have the time during the week because of work and then the needs of our daughter at home. And so yeah, dude, I'm doing cycle bar and like weight sessions at like from like 9:30 or 10 o'clock until 11:30.
That's like some
Come
hard
home,
body.
shower, and I try to like go to bed.
That's amazing.
I don't know if it's amazing. It's just
it's
the deal
impressive
is.
if nothing else.
Well, it's I don't
So
know.
when you think, I want to jump back just a little bit to that moment where you kind of move out to Telluride, Colorado, which for anyone that doesn't know, not familiar with the area, it's kind of this epic mecca for skiing and mountain sports.
Yeah.
Kind of tucked in the corner of the San Juan Mountains.
Yeah.
And what was it like coming out here as an adult and kind of getting ingrained into the outdoors where everyone else maybe seems like they already know how to do the skiing, the climbing, the camping?
Well, it was amazing, and there's a couple moments in my life that serve as these like flag in the ground moments that are like there's everything predecessory to that and everything afterward. And moving to Telluride is one of those things. It completely changed the course and direction of my life. And all love to Telluride because I was so green, so wet behind the ears, such a newbie. And the folks there, that community, which I still feel a part of, even though I haven't lived there since 2013, they just took me under their wing and showed me the way. And that's one of the reasons why I moved out there, is because during that 3-day ski trip, I just became enthralled with not just the mountains, but the mountain culture, and Telluride is one of those places that's just like buzzes with culture. It sets the culture in the outdoors, I think, in our greater outdoor community. It's one of those locales that just does that. And living there was amazing. And I had no idea what I was doing. I learned how to ski on snowmaking whales. I got a job as a snowmaker, and then a lifty, and then ski patroller, and then I just dove into becoming a mountain dude, and everybody there showed me the way. And it was an amazing amazing thing. I still say, when people ask me what my favorite ski line ever is, it's the first day skiing ever during that 3-day trip that led me to move there. The first poles push off, I'm going downhill on the meadows, which is, the bunny hill there. And I absolutely fly through the air, like huge yard sail, break a pole, bruise a rib. And I point to that as my favorite ski run of all time, even though I've been lucky enough to ski, all over North America and all over the world now, because it started everything. Like I tumbled like in a Charlie Brown dust up, and my buddies were laughing at me, and I was laughing. I had to tuck tail and go back into the gear shop and be like, hey, this pole's broken. It doesn't work anymore. I need a new one. And it just I was just like, this is the thing. This is the thing. Ever since then, my whole life has changed, and it's changed my career. It's changed where I live. It's changed who I spend my time with. It's changed my identity, self-worth. It's how I found my wife. It's how we have our daughter now. It's all because of that first ski run, So yeah, I love Telluride. I'll be a Telluride guy, even if I never live there ever again. I'll be a Telluride guy forever.
It's a remarkable way to kind of like conceptualize that framework, thinking about these paths, like that you eating absolute shit, falling down the mountain led to ultimately meeting your wife, having a kid, like those moments. Without it, like, who knows what Paddy's life looks like. I
would probably be living outside Chicago in a job that didn't really fulfill the passionate center of my heart, and I think I'd be 500 pounds because I'd have a diet of nothing but Italian beef sandwiches, Italian sausage, and deep dish.
There you go, a little Mountain Dew.
When I go home, let me tell you, that's what I eat. When I go back to Chicago, that's still what I eat. So yeah, who knows? Like, and thank God that I ate shit in Telluride, and it changed the course of my life, because
like any hero's journey, you have sort of the ascension, which is kind of this beautiful period of being young 20s and one of the coolest mountain towns you could ever ask for. And then the way I understand it is there's kind of the fall from grace period, right? There's the stumble that every hero has to encounter that makes the movie interesting, right?
Yeah. Well, 29 years old, I was intervened upon, and I was, the best decision that was ever made for me. I went to a 30-day in-treatment rehab facility for alcoholism and drug addiction in Minnesota, and then I lived in a sober house for about 15 months, moved out into downtown St. Paul, and lived in St. Paul, kind of working on the foundation of sobriety, getting into recovery for the better part, just a little over 2 years. And then I got a gig working at a magazine in Boulder. And so I moved to Denver after, getting a solid foundation built in recovery. But really it's like alcoholism, mental health issues is not a thing that, there's like a flashpoint, but there's not like an inception point later on in life. It's something that you're born with that shows up differently throughout your life. Some of my earliest childhood memories are of suicidal ideation. And then I found booze and drugs in my teens, and that was the medicine. That's what helped me feel okay That's what kept the demons of, childhood trauma at bay. That's what kept the demons of depression and anxiety, suicidal ideation at bay, until, of course, they didn't work as much. But the frequency of use and the amount of use was still going up, and going up at a level that was, trying to kill me. I very nearly died at 29 years old because of untreated mental health. And luckily, which is very often not the case, friends and family came to my rescue and got me safe enough to get me into rehab. And that is another one of those flag in the ground moments. Changed the course of my life. If not for that, I would not be here talking to you today. I would be dead. And luckily, I have been in long-term continuous recovery since May of 2013. Thank God.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when I have people on the show that have those kinds of stories, it's a tough thing to talk about, obviously, but I love when folks are comfortable enough to share that story, because the chances are there's somebody listening to this that is either 28-year-old Paddy or 34-year-old Paddy, right? On one side of that intervention or that rock bottom. Yeah. And anytime they can hear somebody that has made it through, I think it's an exceptional thing. And I was raised by a family of addicts. My mom's been in the recovery and teaches different like methodologies and helps people get sober. And I've been around it my whole life, so I have a lot of familiarity with that world. And I have a lot of respect for anyone that is able to channel it into another place, because you never change. And like that's what you realize about like hanging out with addicts, is like an addict is an addict, but they can refocus and put that energy into something else. And a lot of times you see it with like ultra runners. How many ultra runners do we know that were like heroin addicts? Or
for sure.
Crazy.
Yeah, for sure. There's something about, and I've run an ultra myself, so like there's something about endurance sports that puts you in an emotional state, or is a physical representation of kind of a mental health struggle. At least that's my understanding of it personally, and what I hypothesize is the reason why a lot of endurance athletes are in the recovery world as well. There's something about like everything in your body and everything in your mind, everything in your heart saying, you gotta stop. You gotta stop. Just sit down. Sit down. And you get to look at that monster and say, no, because if I sit down, I'm gonna stay here. And I gotta get home. I gotta get to the finish line. And there's something really powerful about that, like physical manifestation and besting that voice in your head. Because I don't think, at least personally, like I don't know if that voice ever goes away. It's a volume dial, right? Sometimes it's soft, sometimes it's really loud. But it's really, it's an incredible practice, an incredible opportunity to like hear that voice, look at that monster and say like, you know what? Like you don't have your hands on the steering wheel anymore. So booyah. And that's, that's great. Cause like, it's not just that like, you're running the 50, it's like the 6 months of training it's the 1,000 miles that you've put in to it as well. It's the constant work for the thing, and that's very representative of recovery. It's an everyday thing. It's not like, and it's also not like I use recovery to slap my hand away from booze and drugs. It's not like that for me, at least, which I feel very fortunate about. Like what recovery is about for me is about like rejoicement. It's about getting out of my way, making sure that voice in my head, that monster, is like turned down so that I can show up as a, active participant in life, not thinking about myself, about trying to think about the other folks in my life and how I can help out, how I could be a helpful human. That's why recovery is kick-ass. I mean, it's the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, but it's the most worthwhile thing that has ever happened to me. Yeah,
and I think a lot of people are really happy that you made that decision, because since that point, done like a lot of really cool things and like inspired a lot of people. And yeah, it's a shame to think about, like, you know, how that can derail so much talent. You know,
Yeah.
how many talented people never, you know, made it out the other end of that. So, it's something to be grateful for, and I think it's a testament to mental strength, and it definitely carries over into things like endurance sports or career or whatever it is you choose to focus that energy on.
Yeah. I mean, and just like, you know, when I moved to Telluride and there was the flag in the ground moment there, you know, I didn't do that alone, right? I didn't become a mountain dude because I willed my way to do it. I showed up and I asked for help and people helped me. And that's the exact same thing with recovery. I didn't do it because I willed myself to it. I did it because people were like, you need help. And I was like, I'm really scared. I'm going to take this help. And I kept asking for help. You know, life and mountain pursuits, even individual mountain pursuits like, you know, ultra, they're the greatest individualized team sports of all time. You know, life is a team sport. You know, it's one of my mottos. And that's true of recovery. That's true of any mountain pursuit. So
yeah,
I have a big team. So I'm pretty thankful for it.
I just wrote on my page, ask for help, because it's a good reminder, and it's hard to remember, like, oh yeah, there are other people that would be like stoked to help me out. It's not just they'd actually be excited about that idea.
Yeah, for sure. You know, and like, I got this are like the 3 most dangerous words in the English language.
Wow, that's nice. I like that.
Yeah, it's just like, dude, don't do it alone. Whatever it is, don't do it alone. You know.
Speaking of the asking for help, you went down this journey creating Paddy O Sucks At.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
I want to know, what was the genesis for that? Were you like sitting in your shower and you're like, I've got an idea. I'll explain how I suck at mountain sports and I'll record it and make it funny.
You know, what's funny is a lot of really of my, what I think are like good ideas do come in the shower. It's me and the loofah, and we're just sitting there and like, hey, conditioner, what do you think about this idea? But I think, you know, I pride myself on being, you know, just an everyday man adventurer. You know, like I consider myself an athlete. I consider myself an athletic human, but I also know that I'm pretty shitty at a lot of the things that I do, and I just do them because they make me happy, right? Like, you know, like the line of in skiing, you know, if you're not falling, you're not trying, and if you're not smiling, you're trying too hard. That's kind of been my, you know, beacon for a long time. And with Paddy O Sucks At, the TV show that I've hosted, where, you know, it's the conceit of it is, you know, I try to go from 0 to hero in 3 days of trying a new to me sport. And I had written some things like that around fly fishing and mountain biking. I did a podcast where I went on this like dream trip. I got invited by Orvis on this dream trip to go to Belize and go saltwater flats fishing for permit, which is the most elusive fish ever. It like looks like a
Super Bowl of fly fishing is permit fishing.
And Orvis knowingly invited me with the knowledge that I am absolute trash at fly fishing. I had done it only a handful of times. I had all the gear. I had been so frustrated by it because it takes so much technique. And from lacrosse and like every other sport, which is like break your wrist, snap it over, you know, whether you're like hitting a baseball or a softball or shooting a hockey puck or a lacrosse ball, you know, roll that thing over. And with fly fishing, it's like, no, be super stiff, 10 and 2. And I was like, I have so much muscle memory of like snap. So I was just like, you know, my wife, who is the most aggressively and upsettingly talented athlete at friggin' every sport ever, including fly fishing, was like, man, you're just like a little limp-wristed, hot dog-wristed caster. And I was like, don't call me that, you know? And So I went on this this dream trip to Belize, and just had my ass handed to me for 3 days. Recorded it all, made a podcast about like what being an adult beginner really is all about, and why it's important to continue to challenge yourself like that. And then a creative partner of mine, Micah Abrams, who is the executive producer of Paddy O Sucks At, like, he was tasked from Outside TV to come up with some new shows. And he was like, what if we do something around this adult beginnerism? Like, what would that look like for us? And we began to brainstorm around it, having worked on some articles about adult beginnerism, having worked on just that whole idea of like why challenging yourself outside is a good idea. It's like, could we show this in a humorous way that would be an exciting and fun thing to watch? And we and that's where we came up with the idea.
So the original one, that podcast you just mentioned, was that was your own podcast? It wasn't related to Outside magazines.
No, it was. It was for the previous format, the narrative style for the Outside podcast, and before taking over as host, producer, and director of the current format, which is a chat show. I had been contributing for a number of years to the show, longtime contributor, something like 60 plus episodes.
Got it.
And this was one of the episodes, one of my favorite ones, because it's just, I'm out in the field, I'm on this this skiff with push pole, and I'm at the front of it, and you can hear the water lapping, and you can hear me also saying like, I'm getting my ass handed to me, and then there's moments of excitement where I like make a good cast and a permit actually follows, and I'm like, oh my God, it's gonna happen, and it doesn't happen. I ended up on the last cast of the trip, I ended up catching a needlefish. I don't know if you've ever heard. Do you know what a needlefish is? It looks like a flute. It looks like a belt. It is. It's like Honey, I Shrunk the Marlin, and it is the smallest. Like it's so small that it like nearly didn't even like bend the tip of my fly rod. And but I made a great cast for it. I like spotted it, and it felt like I landed Jaws. It was the most exhilarating thing. I have a picture of myself. I'm smiling so much, like I just caught like a merman. Like, it was incredible, and the whole thing is hilarious. And so the conceit started from these things of me previously dipping my toes into telling stories about like why challenging yourself as an athlete and trying new things is a great thing. And the conceit, really, like, what's at the core of that, the reason that we don't do that is because we have this giant fear of looking stupid, especially in the outdoor community. Like, I think it's true of all adults. We don't want to look stupid. We don't want to open up the drawbridge and let people in and be like, here's how I really feel, and here's how I really look. But definitely in the outdoor community, right? We're expected to like come out of the womb stomping 50 footers, and doing backflips and just being an expert, and there's so much social cachet, especially in like mountain towns, about your athletic performance, whether it's like, oh, that dude like rips on a mountain bike like so fast, or that gal's the best skier in, the Roaring Fork Valley. And it's like, is there enough space for me to still be cool, to still be accepted in my community if I'm just dog shit at this stuff? But I go out there because I just like to have fun, and I think it's neat. And like, for so long, that fear of looking stupid has kept me from doing things. And that might be, going to get a burger with pals, or it might be trying fly fishing, or it might be trying mountain biking or ultra or whatever. And so the show was really this great opportunity for me to like punch that like hubris green monster in the face and say like, no, I'm going to do this and try new things. And also like kind of recalibrate, like, what is success? Is success just stepping out and trying, or is success like, do I have to podium in order to be a successful adult athlete, adult beginner? And it's like, no, I should just try hard, and then laugh my way through getting my ass served to me while I'm learning this new thing that might be my new thing, Because at one point, I had never skied before, and I fell in a terrible dust up, laughed my way through that, and it changed the course of my life. So can I try to harness that same thing that I had when I was 23 and I was like, screw it, you know? And I just did the thing and became the thing. So that's what's about. And hopefully, you know, we made other people feel like that. And I think we did, you know, which is fun. The bar for me for anything, whether it's the TV show, the podcast, whether I'm writing something, producing a film, you know, whatever kind of creative endeavor I'm in, the mission statement for my work is always, I want to tell stories that make people laugh, make people think, and make people feel like they belong. And if I can do any one of those things in the thing, then I am doing a good job. If I can do all three, then I'm, you know, flying high.
So one thing I want to dig into is the idea of not taking yourself too seriously. And I feel like that when I watched Paddy O Sucks, I was like, somehow this guy, and I know it takes work, right? Like naturally you're still going to get frustrated. Everyone gets frustrated, especially with things like climbing or running, where you literally cannot surpass a certain level, like no matter how hard you try.
Yeah.
Totally. But you're this big, gruff dude, but you're able to not take yourself so serious. And I think that's something that I personally struggle with, is like, I just want to be good. And like, sometimes it's hard to not take myself so seriously. So the question is there any tools or mindset that you have going into it to try and like make that manifest in the show?
I mean, that is the show, you know, like, and the tool there is just the constant reminder that like, that's the show, but it's also like just who I am as a person. You know, I'm not putting on a front or a character for the show or for the podcast or for an essay I write or something like that. You know, like I think maybe for my entire life, when I'm in the light, when I'm in the good place, you know, I take what I do very seriously, but I don't take myself seriously. I care very much about the, you know, the lunch pail art that I create. That's what I think of myself as, like a blue collar artist. And I care very much about it. And I take great care for it. And I'm very thoughtful about it. I spend a ton of time thinking about the things that I create, trying to make it the best possible thing. But I don't take myself so seriously. I am not a nose in the air artist. I am not this, you know, extremely, you know, top tier athlete. I'm a normal dude who likes to do cool stuff outside. And if I can make it seem like to the audience that this is like coming off the cuff, you know, and like the jokes are landing easier because of that, and the message is getting into poignancy and into the heart of the audience member easier because it seems like it's off the cuff, then I've done my job. If you can make that effort look effortless in terms of not taking yourself seriously, then you're doing the right job. When your work is in, you know, I consider myself a humorist. When your work is in humor and you're a humorist, if you can make it seem like it's effortless, it's like, oh, perfect. You know, it's like watching Jordan play, flying through the air. You're like, God, he's so graceful. What you don't see is the greatest basketball player of all time in the weight room or training or running sprints. You don't see the practice that goes into it, but you can still appreciate the artistry. And that's what I hope it is. So I think it's just a constant challenge. And really the end goal is like anything I do in the creative world, right, is for the audience. So it's like, how is this serving them? So me being like a hubris twerp doesn't serve the audience. It doesn't get them laughter. It doesn't get them a thought-provoking message. It doesn't make them feel like they belong at all. If I'm like this, you know, I'm
so there's
super rad.
There's more
dude.
intentionality.
Yeah.
There's more intentionality behind it. It seems than you would expect, and that is your gym work. That is your wind sprints. Is like thinking about how the end product is going to develop.
Yeah.
because all they see is like, oh, this guy's just like funny and like having a good time, but they don't see that like, yes, he's funny and having a good time, but he's being very intentional about like what the end product is and what the goal is, because the ethos of the story is, let's make it accessible for people to be beginners at 30, 40, 50 years old.
Yeah.
And so there's that intentionality behind it that maybe people don't think about when they're watching the episode.
Yeah, and great. Like I hope that they're not like watching an episode or listening to a podcast episode or reading an essay and they're like, well, I wonder like how often, Paddy looks at the dictionary or and like what he's like reading about, like, humor or like, what kind of like cinematic camera angles he wants to take into the next shoot, that like I don't want them thinking about the creation of the art. I want them thinking about the art.
Right.
And like hopefully it hits them in the heart and the funny bone, like I think I show up to the world generally just looking through the lens of humor. I think that's a Chicago trait. I think that's very much an Irish trait. And it's just something how I was raised, like it was a funny household. We were filled with a lot of laughter, but there was also, like seriousness there. So I think that like, taking humor seriously is like a cool thing, and looking at life through the lens of like looking for the next best one-liner is a great way to navigate. It's helped me navigate life. And so that I think that's what you're probably seeing in my work.
Which episode did you have the most fun or laughter making?
Ooh. I don't know. I mean, they all are special in their own way. My favorite is probably Ultra, because we broke away from the 3-day conceit, because you can't show up to an Ultra, at least I can't, with 3 days, to go from 0 to hero. That's a great way to like run yourself into the ER. Right. And so we filmed.
Done that.
Yeah, I'm sure. A lot of people have. It's just like off the couch, 50-miler. I'm like, oh my God, that sounds so terrible. We filmed for the 5 months that I trained, while also filming all of the other, episodes. And so that episode really feels more like a short film than it does, kind of like in the normal conceit. But I love, the like fly fishing and burro race. The burro racing one is hilarious because, like Darby the donkey. I still think about Darby all the time. Like it's just like this, like, 900-pound puppy, basically, who was just pissing and shitting all over the place, but tons of fun. That one was really hilarious. One that hit me in the heart and was really rewarding was kayaking, because I got to go out there with my buddy Stan, who I've known, since the early Telluride days, and had always wanted to try kayaking, been super freaked out by it, and then did it, and it was like amazing, and we filmed it right here in my backyard. So that was really incredible. And then the whole second season are all these endurance challenges, that most of which I told myself I will never do that. When I was in my 20s, I said I would never run a marathon, and now here I am running an ultra. I had never ever once thought, oh, I should try a triathlon. Did a triathlon. Surfing, had been enthralled with surf culture since being a little pool rat in Chicago, and I'm out there with Cassia Metter, who is this like absolute OG, like nose riding, longboarding queen. She is surfing, and to hang out for 3 days and like there's like dolphins like swimming past us. I was like, what is my life right now? What is even happening? I mean, the TV show has been such a personally rewarding thing, because I've gotten to try so many cool things and challenged myself. And it's also like, I can't believe that, I'm hanging out with dolphins. I can smell their blowholes, and this is my day. It's like, this is a Tuesday at work. This is insane. I
know a lot of people have like different preferences, different strokes for different folks. But in my opinion, and I think I speak on behalf of all of my friends, that seems like the coolest job in the world, is to get paid to go somewhere with the expert in the thing, and just hang out with them.
Yes.
and learn from them.
Yes.
You know, like that. I mean, that's about as cool as it gets.
It's one of the greatest boondoggles of my career ever. to convince outside, they're like, hey, I should just go hang out with like these super rad folks, you know, and do the thing, and it's gonna make some, you know, some compelling storytelling. You know?
Is there a moment like throughout Paddy O Sucks that you look back and you're like, I cringe at this part? Because it is hard to watch yourself, at least for me. You know, sometimes I'll be like, I said that stupid thing in the podcast. Why did I say that stupid thing? Or, you know, I look goofy doing this or that. Is there any moment that you feel like that?
I mean, like everything and nothing all at the same time. You know, like part of, you know, since my first byline in outdoor media, my kind of wheelhouse has been like personality driven storytelling, you know, the personal essay or podcasting or being in front of the camera and being a goofball. And no matter what type of creative you are, you have to kind of be okay with sucking in public and learning with an audience. Like, and that's not some days it's easy and you don't give a shit. And other days you're like, you feel like you're back in 6th grade in the cafeteria and you're like, oh my God, I just want everybody to like me. And I feel so scared. And Jesus, this is so terrible. God, where am I going to sit? You know, that feeling? It's super hard, you know? And so, yeah, there's times when I look or listen or reread something, you know, because I do feel like it's like watching game film, you know, like there's a part of me that's like, oh, I should never go back and do that. And part of me that's like, okay, let's learn from previous mistakes or this really hit. How can I do this differently down the road? So yeah, there's parts of it where I'm like, oh God, that's so brutal. Hopefully, like, especially with the TV show or the podcast, because there's so much, you know, post-pro. Hopefully none of that shit is published and it's just, you know, on the cutting room floor somewhere. But I think one of the things I think that is like hard is like, especially in the 2nd season, because I'm like squozing into so many like versions of like outdoorsy pantyhose.
That
like,
is a word, squozing.
Yeah, freshly squozing into, you know, this gear like the lycra for or the lycra or the wetsuit for triathlon, the wetsuit for surfing. You know, and I see my, you know, fuzzy bagel, my Dunlap, you know, my belly done lapped over my belt buckle. You know, it's like, you're like, oh, fuck, man, maybe I should have like done some sit-ups before I went out there. And like, that's, you know, that's just a personal thing that like I've dealt with, like body image stuff since I was a little kid, you know, stemming from some childhood trauma. But again, like challenging that, right, is like part of the deal of saying like, okay, maybe like I'm never going to look like a young Brad Pitt in A River Runs Through It, like the most handsome human being to ever be. I'm never going to have a 6-pack. That's just not in my DNA as a Chicago Irishman, as a jiggly outdoorsman. But this body is still capable of doing great things, of performing at a high level and doing things that I love to do. And so in that, even though I feel embarrassed about, you know, the jiggly bits showing through spandex, you know, it's like, hey, look at that. You know, I'm 6'5", I'm 250 pounds, and I finished a triathlon in less time than I thought I was going to do it in like actually pretty good time. And so like, yeah, like this big ass jiggly body can truck. Hell yeah. Great. So that's some of the cringy shit that I look at. But yeah, hopefully in terms of like stuff I've said or acted or something like that, that stuff gets cut out.
Yeah, for sure.
And if it doesn't, then, you know, you get to yell at your editor.
The one thing I was wondering was like, and I haven't seen every minute of every episode, but you know, you're springing yourself into this, and being malleable and having a good time while doing it, but you're also like putting yourself up like at pretty great risk in some of this stuff. Like there's a lot of room to get injured and fuck yourself up.
Yeah.
Was there any situations where like you developed either like chronic usage injuries or just like got a conky or like just smacked yourself somehow?
You know, luckily as a larger than normal human who has done ball sports, team sports, and contact sports like since he was a kid, I am very good at falling. So I have a lot of experience falling. And that has been true of every mountain pursuit ever that I've ever tried to do, including just walking, you know? So luckily, I know how to take a hit and roll out of it. But snowboarding sent me to the doctor. I took so many brutal falls, like car crash wreck falls. And also just in 3 days, it was like the amount of them and falling like continuously, either like on my chest, like full mousetrap, like whoosh, on my chest, on hard groomers, or like on my like right butt cheek, you know, that the accumulation of that was just like my L4, L5 in my back just spasmed.
Yeah.
I was like, nope. And my back actually like, seized up, and that's never happened to me before. And so I had to go to the doctor. So that one sent me to the doctor. And, yeah, there's some like things that were nominated, some sports that were nominated that I was like, that's going to be a no. Like, not because I'm afraid of trying it. I'm afraid of like 3 days of repetitive destruction on my 40-year-old body.
Well, that it's interesting to me that I mean, I talk about this sometimes. It's basically that the first 3 to 4 days of snowboarding is great. Once you've got it, it's riding a bike. But the first 3 to 4 days, there's really nothing more painful in life.
Oh, dude, it was. And I went in, talk about hubris, dude. I went in and I was like, I'm a skier, man. I'm like, I can slide on snow. Like, I'm going to be able to do it. And it was just like, as soon as I was like, was strapped in, I was like, oh, this is going to be bad. This is going to be super bad.
Especially as an adult. It's one thing like, I started riding when I was 12 and I remember the pain then. And I'm like, I wouldn't do it now.
I mean, everyone I talked to who was like, dude, Paddy O, what do you do? You know, because we filmed it here in the Roaring Fork Valley. So I live down valley from Aspen, and we filmed it in Aspen. And you know, like, I know the folks over there. And they're like, dude, what are you doing? What's with the, you know, the mono board, dude? I was like, oh, we're filming this thing. And then everybody that I said I was going to, you know, try snowboarding to were like, oh, man, I tried that, you know, 3 years ago, broke my wrist. You know, I tried, even my doctor. I went into my doctor and he was like, yeah, my son and I, dude, I don't snowboard anymore because I broke my wrist. It's like, oh, God, dude, you know? So, snowboarding is brutal. But the frustrating part was like day 3, I was like, oh, it's clicking. I'm starting to get it. And then my back just went, and it was like, no.
It takes 3 days to be able to do like an S turn and actually like fall into your rhythm. Like, actually get up to a speed that's manageable. Because in the beginning, you're going so slow, you have no inertia. And it's just like, you basically
and that's the thing,
catch
just
an
like
edge.
skiing. Yeah. And just like skiing, you need the speed for the technology to engage the board.
Right.
And it's super scary as a beginner because you're like, well, but like if I hit a toe side edge and I whoosh to the ground, that speed is not going to be my friend.
Yeah, the way I teach now, I have two primary methodologies. One, I make everyone that if I'm helping a friend from out of town snowboard, I have a girdle that I keep here. And you got to wear the girdle under your pants. Yeah. And everyone's like, that's so lame. But then like you're stoked that you have it. Yeah. And then the first thing we learn is how to bail onto the butt. Because if you take a heel side onto your booty, it doesn't hurt that bad if you have a girdle on. If you take a toe side onto your face, it might change your life.
Dude, that's how we open the episode for snowboarding. Is me taking a toe side. It's the morning of the second day, right? It's just a cold open. You don't know it's the second day, but it's the morning of the second day. And there I am. I take off the lift. I'm like, I'm feeling it, man. I'm freaking feeling it. The wind is in my hair. This is amazing. And I get speed and I hit a toe side, and I hit the earth with such force so quickly. I couldn't even put my hands out. I just took it straight to the chest and to the dome. And like, I have legitimately been hit by a car before when I was a little kid. And the getting hit by the blue hair old lady in the Buick did not hurt as much as the toe side I took snowboarding. It was brutal. and you can hear me rolling my way out of it, saying the F word. like that is like, I still think about it. Like, my chest hurts right now thinking about it. I should probably take some ibuprofen right now.
It is the fastest split second thing you've ever experienced in your life.
There's no time to do anything. There's no time. Yeah.
You're alive, and you're dead. And it's just, there's no
100%.
It doesn't matter, like, if you're the greatest athlete on earth, like, those first couple days on a snowboard are just brutal.
Absolutely brutal.
Well, I hope you get to, ride once you're, like, healthy and, like, now, like, experience the fruits of your labor and actually enjoy it.
We'll see. I mean, I didn't try it this winter. We filmed it last spring, and I didn't try snowboarding this winter, and I don't know. I mean, I just love skiing so much, and I'm also like love not falling hard on frozen groomers. So we'll see. I would be nice to give it a shot again.
I did the opposite this year. I tried skiing for the first time. I split board a lot, so I feel like I was like at least used to being on skis.
Sure.
And probably similar to you, like we were in the 90s in the Midwest, so we had inline skates on concrete.
The rollerblading in the Midwest in the 90s was a vibe.
Yeah, it was so epic. And that's what I like. It reminds me of kind of like, I'm like, oh, it's like I'm on my old inlines and we're all kind of grooving and whatnot.
That's awesome.
But even skiing, like that first like 2-3 runs, I felt so ridiculous. My best friend came by me. He's an amazing skier. And he goes, you can't lean back. You're not going to have any control.
Yeah.
And I look at him and I go, not a shot.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
I was so paralyzed with fear. I'm just laying back on the boots.
Totally.
And then once I realized what he was saying, he's like, oh, I need to go into the mountain. Now I can S-turn.
Pressure on the tongues of the boots. Like, oh, wow. But like leaning downhill, you're like, this is awkward.
Not a shot.
Yeah, totally. I know. Yeah. That's how you get the backseat Jesus. The arms out like, ah! Yeah.
So, Paddy O Sucks At.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Highly recommend that. But you're now have been introduced as the new outside podcast host.
Yes.
Tell me kind of what drove that transition and how that's going.
Well, outside wanted to change the format of the show into a chat show. And it's kind of just like what the trend in podcasting is right now, narrative podcasts. While I love them very much, the trend is just not there. The listeners are the audience is telling folks what they want, and what folks want, is two people chatting like this. And so I was asked if I wanted to take over as host, but also, producer and director of the show. And I was like, oh God, yeah, absolutely. I've been contributing to the podcast, like I said, for, a number of years and love it, and, so I feel very honored to take the helm of the show and continue to, direct it forward in this new format. And, excuse me, luckily I'm still teamed up with Micah Abrams from Paddy O Sucks At, and we are continuing to go deeper and deeper into our creative partnership, which is really fun. And it's kind of been like, doing a weekly show is like, it's, especially when you have a newborn at home, it's kind of like taking life through a fire hose. It's like there is a lot to do and not a lot of time in the day to do it. But the coolest part of my many jobs in media. One of the coolest things is I get to talk to really incredibly interesting people. I am generally, just a very curious human. Like, I think the why and the how of things, like, I'm always asking about that. And so what I've been able to do in this new format of the show is do that with people. We want to find out about the surprising impacts of a life outside. And we are talking to all sorts of people that maybe maybe you've never heard of, but we're talking to them about these interesting and unique experiences and how they've used those interesting, unique experiences outside to navigate life. And it's been a blast. It's been super rewarding so far. And yeah, I'm really hopeful that the audience is getting something out of it.
Yeah, it's amazing. I first heard your story, I think, on Mason Gravely's podcast. And I had him on my podcast as well. And I remember when I first stumbled upon the Adventure Sports podcast, and I was like, this is kind of what I've been looking for, which is I want to hear the impact that the outdoors is having on people. I also want to know why you biked from Alaska to Florida. Like, who the fuck wakes up in the morning and goes, I've got an idea. I'm going to bike as a poor college kid from the coldest place to the hottest place in the States. And those
then
stories,
the why, but also it's like what did you learn along the way? Like, what were the most challenging aspects of, like, the actual physical pursuit? But then what did you learn from this whole thing? Like, oh my God, like, biking diagonally across the states. Holy smokes. What did you learn about our country, our people, our culture? Like, that's the super interesting stuff about it. It's not like, what was your sickest chain lube, bro? It's like, it's the cool thing about working in outdoor media is that the outdoors are just the door through which we walk to better understand how folks go about their life. And ultimately, what you can get away with, or what you can take away with from chatting with these folks is a lesson that you can apply to your own life. That's what's super cool about these conversations. That's what we're trying to do, hopefully, like you and I are trying to do right here. And definitely what we're trying to do, on the Outside Podcast.
Yeah. So I'm curious with that show, is it just let Paddy decide who sounds super epic, or is it like, do you guys have like a specific criteria? Because one thing I think about, I had Shelby Stanger on here who works with REI's podcast, and their production value is so good. Yeah, and they've got so many different moving parts and stuff like that inside their podcast, and I'm like, I would be curious to know, like, working with a big company, what the differences are in pre-production, post-production. Like, for me, I just sit here. I DM'd you. I was like, yo, dude, your life looks sick. Can I talk to you about your life? And then we hop on a podcast. But I'm guessing that there's more to do with more intentionality that goes into something like the Outside Podcast.
Well, it's not like, I think the spark is the same. Maybe how it's figured out might be a little different, right? Like, there are times when I need, I can't find an email and I need to DM somebody and I say, hey, can you email me? I can't find your email. I want to have you on the show. But, like Micah and I have, like a semi-formal, semi-informal nomination protocol of like the person, the why, the potential interview focus, like a short bio of the person. And we figure out, like, okay, like, could this person be on the show? Is this a known entity, a known character within the outdoors? And if they are, what are we going to talk about that's unique, or that they have not talked about before, they haven't been able to talk about before, they have had to swallow it because of PR or their agent or whatever it is? Is it an unknown person? If it is an unknown person, why do we want to know them? What about them is interesting? And ultimately, no matter who it is, it's what can the audience take away from this? Is there a call to action, or is there a big message that the audience can take away? And that has been, how we've directed the show so far. And then, we're kind of building it's a weekly show, and we're kind of building the boat as we're floating downriver. And so things, there's going to be slight tweaks here and there. But that's the show, right there. And we take about a 90-minute interview and edit it to somewhere between 35 to 45 minutes, potentially 55 minutes if need be. So we're slightly edited, and we're highly produced. We've got Robbie Carver, who has created music for the Outside Podcast for ever, and he mixed, masters, and scores the show. So it is a chat show, but we have music to try to make it a little more cinematic. Maren Larson, who previously worked on the Outside Podcast as well, is behind the scenes doing booking and research, and she is like so good at the things that she finds. And so she'll send me research packet with pertinent media, potential questions. I dig into all that stuff, and then I create kind of the question stream so that there is an A to B. There is a story arc that we're going to follow. So we try to make a chat show. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel, but we are trying to make it slightly different. We're trying to put Outside's stamp on it. So, and we still have to, make sure that it's, it's an Outside product. So it's within the Outside voice, which luckily I've been, I'm not an Outside employee, but I've been working with them for a long time. I kind of joke I'm the Outside, fun uncle. Like, I don't get invited to all of the, the serious family meetings. I get invited to the barbecue, and I get to dance on the table. So that's kind of my job, So it's exactly. And luckily, I have great experiences with my nieces and nephews being a funkle.
There you go.
So that's the show. That's how we do things. And I'm really pleased with it, and grateful for the opportunity to be in front of the mic, and then also be behind the scenes kind of conducting.
Yeah, what an honor, to be asked to do something like that. It's so sick.
Huge. It's huge. I mean, it's a big job. It's a big ask, and I feel like it's like warmed my heart to be asked to take over this thing that I've cared so deeply about for so many years, and had such rewarding experiences working for the show for so many years. And for them to say, hey, we're going to change the format that we know is tried and true. We're going to change it to this different thing, and we don't know what's going to happen, and we want you to direct it. It's like, wow. Holy schmicks. So, it's a big honor. I feel very, very fortunate.
If you were talking to, theoretically, which I think this could apply to me or a lot of my listeners, but if you had to give advice to someone that's trying to make a life and a living in the outdoors, what advice would you give them? How would they double down on maybe their natural talents in order to make this a true career?
Be okay with sucking in public. Learn how to write a really good pitch email, a really tight pitch email. And the best advice I ever got, and when I am asked this question, a lot of advice was given to me, and a lot of help was given to me very early on in my career. And people email me now asking for phone calls or emails for advice. And so it's my responsibility to continue the help that was given to me, on to the next folks. And what I tell people when I talk to them is the same thing that my brother Brendan, who has been in the grind in the music industry for his entire adult life, and is a very successful guy now. But it has taken such a long time and so much hard work. And one of the things I tell people is that above his desk is this giant poster that reads, work hard and be nice to people. So I tell people to do that. And the other thing is that when I was first getting into outdoor media, and I was moving into freelancing, which was super scary. I was leaving this job that I had in Minnesota, and I was going to go into freelancing. And I was talking to my brother because I knew that he, similarly in his industry, was a freelancer. I was like, how do you do this? And he was like, what's the best part of your job? From the old job, what do you like the most? And I was like, oh, well, writing and telling stories about the folks of the outdoors. And he goes, then do that. And then he said very assertively, calmly assertive, and very slowly, intentionally into the phone, he said, and get on that motherfucking hustle. And that is how I have looked at this thing. A lot of people who work in freelance, in media, in the outdoors don't have to have this job. They do it kind of like a hobby because either they are trust fund kids or they have family money or whatever it is. Like, that is not where I am at. That has never been my journey, And so I think of this as like lunch pail, clocking in and out, 9 to 5. This is a 40-hour a week at minimum job, Monday through Friday. And if you want it to be your job, then treat it as a job. Don't wear pajama pants to your computer. Don't start your day at 1 o'clock. Get your 40 hours in and treat it like you would if you were clocking in to a job where you had to, run a shovel all day. Like, do the work. That's my advice.
What rings back in my head there is what you said earlier in the podcast, and could be a beautiful way to wrap this, which is take your work really seriously.
Yeah.
But don't take yourself too seriously.
Yeah, absolutely. You gotta laugh. You gotta laugh your way through it. Otherwise, everything in life becomes too heavy. Even in the heavy parts, look for the joke, because the joke is there, and it takes it's the purging of the bilge, the emotional bilge. Otherwise, that stuff builds up, and it comes out in weird, funky ways. But yeah, if you can continue to ask for help, if you can work hard, if you can be nice to people, and if you can find your own voice and try to tap into that and make something that is going to be meaningful in some way to somebody else. And even if the goal of the thing is always to make an impact on one person, and even if that one person is you, then you're doing something, And so, yeah, I would say that's kind of one of my mottos is, for sure, is, work hard, take your shit seriously, but don't take yourself seriously.
Yeah. And what you just said there rings true for me, which is like, the podcast feels like something I get to do so selfishly because I get to just sit on the line with these cool people and ask them questions that I want to know the answer to. So if it rings true for one person, 1,000 people, 1 million people, it doesn't really make a difference, because the reason I'm doing this is because I wanted to know what it was like to get a bunch of producers to agree to send you around the world with the greatest athletes. And, like that, those are the things that I want to know. That's why, that's why I have the podcast.
And anytime you do anything, right, in the way in which media works right now, it's just like a drop in the ocean of the internet, right? So any kind of thing that like is resonating with people in some way is cool. It's like, I worked for a podcast previously, Safety Third, and I think our and it was an incredibly rewarding and illuminating, challenging in the best possible way experience. And I think like our biggest audience was like maybe around like, we were averaging like 10 to 15,000 downloads per episode or something like that. And like, at first you hear that and you're like, oh shit, man, but we work so hard. Like, what the hell? It's not going viral. It's 100 billion people aren't downloading this. However, if you were in front of a microphone and you were at Red Rocks and you had that place packed to the gills with 8,000, 9,000 people, and then there was a handful of 1,000 people outside trying to get in, you'd be like, this is the most successful thing I've ever done in my life, and nothing is ever going to compare to this. If you were at like the Boulder Theater, which holds like a couple hundred people, and it was wall to wall with people, would you be like, well, how come there's not 1 million people like waiting for that? You would be so psyched. So I think that's like, it's all about, much in life is just a change and a shift in perspective. And so that's why if the goal of the thing is to make an impact on a person, that person can be you. If it made an impact on you, the thing that you created, then it's still successful.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's only you. So, and it's like, yeah, hopefully a bajillion people see it, but like, I'm not going to hang whether or not this thing is a success on that. Did I make a good thing? Am I proud of this thing? Do I feel like it's impactful? That's the measuring tape,
Well, I think this is an impactful episode, whether one or a bajillion people listen to it. So
it's been helpful to me, Ryan, and I appreciate you having me on there. So I think it's success. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just want to thank you for your time, because I know that you're a new dad. So you've been so courteous to me, sharing this time, and
thanks.
I know it's not easy to get away, and time is valuable.
My wife is holding our daughter right now doing it's called a contact nap. So she's in our bedroom doing that right now with our 2 dogs too. So I got to go tap her out and see what our little baby girl needs. But
very cool.
Yeah, man. I really appreciate you having me on, man. And this is a hell of a great show. You are making a good thing. You are doing a good thing. So I appreciate
thank you. Appreciate that. For folks that want to know more about Paddy O, where can they find you?
Well, you can find, my latest haps and works at paddyroc.com. And then you can also listen to the Outside Podcasts on any of your podcasting platforms, Apple, Spotify, all those things, or Outside Online. And I hope you listen. We made it for you, so I hope you like it.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Paddy. And until next time, stay wild.
You too, Ryan. Thanks for having me on, man.